We are 850 meters above sea level on the Eskandorg Plateau. Founded in 1991, Lerab Ling is a center for practicing and studying Tibetan Buddhism. As well as being a home to a community of ordained monks and nuns, it also welcomes lay practitioners for retreats. At the heart of Lerab Ling stands a large traditional temple, which was completed in 2006 and consecrated by the Dalai Lama in 2008. This temple was built as a testament, an authentic example here in the West of Tibet's spiritual culture, which is now so endangered in its home country. It is also a center for the study and contemplation of the Buddha's teachings, a place that allows us to develop the peace, compassion and wisdom present in each one of us. For more than 1,000 years, Tibetan culture was devoted to spiritual practice. While the Western world mastered science and technology, in the laboratories that were the monasteries and hermitages of the Himalayas, Tibet perfected the inner sciences of the mind, just as precise and rigorous as the mythology of Western science. During the Chinese invasion of Tibet, and then during the Cultural Revolution, almost all of these monasteries, libraries and great centres of learning were razed to the ground. Of the 6,000 monasteries that once flourished in Tibet, only 12 now remain. Many Buddhist sages and masters fled Tibet, thus initiating the spread of Tibetan Buddhism to the West. Sogyal Rinpoche, the founder of Lerab Ling, is one of the first lamas who came to teach in the West. Sogyal Rinpoche was born and raised in Tibet, where he received the traditional training of a Tibetan Lama. He also received a Western education, studying comparative religion at Cambridge University in England. It was during this period that he helped to arrange the Dalai Lama's first ever visit to the West in 1973. After his studies, Sogyal Rinpoche began to travel, first as an assistant and translator for his masters, and then as a teacher in his own right. He gave the name Rigpa to his work. In 1992, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying was published, which has now been translated into 31 languages. That same year, Lerab Ling opened its doors in southern France. The spot was chosen for its beauty and serenity, both conducive to meditation. Thus an old dairy farm became Lerab Ling, Rigpa's international retreat center. Sogyal Rinpoche established Lerab Ling as a place where great masters of all Buddhist traditions could share their wisdom with people from all over the world.
Rest in natural great peace. Rest in natural great peace. So, using Rinpoche in this wonderful poem, he says, rest in natural great peace, this exhausted mind, beaten helplessly by karma and neurotic thoughts, like the relentless fury of the pounding waves in the infinite ocean of samsara. Rest in natural great peace, rest in natural great peace, to rest, to find rest. Clear? Buddha was an extraordinary, you can say, master, who through his enlightenment so that everyone, without exception, had the same potential as him, the potential of enlightenment. You understand? But then he saw, because of ignorance, they failed to see their true nature. So he's very much moved by the suffering, because created out of ignorance, negative emotion, negative karma. He was very moved and wanted to really show each and every one of us the way of really realizing our own nature, or how do you say, realizing our own potential, the potential of what is called ultimate happiness, which is enlightenment. In fact, in Buddhism, when you talk about enlightenment, people sometimes think, oh, enlightenment, that's not for me. It's only for holy men and women. But actually, really, actually speaking, knowing or knowingly or not, or unknowingly, we actually are all seeking for enlightenment, actually ultimate. Because what enlightenment is the lasting and ultimate happiness, which is free of sorrow, which is free of suffering and the cause. Because what creates suffering is ignorant negative emotion and negative karma, one that has been purified. And when we realize the potential, the omniscience, you see, the potential of enlightenment, then each one of us can realize our true natures. Often I think that, you see, I do not like the word Buddhism, because Buddhism limits Buddhism, because it's not an ism at all. But because people say Buddhism, so we say Buddhism. And it's not also a Tibetan word anyway, it's English word. So it is not Buddha Shakyamuni's, his way, his doctrine, his approach, his line that we are following. Ultimately, actually, what really, if you were to use Buddhism, is a way for each one of us to realize our Buddha nature and become a Buddha. So our Buddha's way for each one of us to realize our potential of complete enlightenment is what Buddhism really is. Is that clear?
With more and more people discovering the peace, compassion and wisdom offered by the Buddhist teachings, Rigpa embarked on the construction of the temple. A number of lamas and scholars were consulted, both about the placement of the temple and throughout its construction. First, the site was blessed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama during his first visit to Lerab Ling in the year 2000. Then, practices were performed before even the foundation work began, then at each stage of the construction. The foremost concern throughout the building of the temple was to respect the authenticity of the spiritual traditions that were the source and inspiration for the project. The plans for the temple were the outcome of meticulous research and were inspired by the most beautiful examples of Tibetan architecture that exist today in the Himalayan region. Modern elements were added to the traditional ones to allow more light to enter the temple interior. 21 contractors from all over France, but primarily from the neighbouring Hérault and Aveyron departments, worked on the site. Artists specialised in Tibetan sacred art, with skills handed down over generations, completed the decoration of the temple. The team was comprised of some of the best traditional artists of the day, some from Bhutan, sent by the Queen Mother, and others exiled Tibetan artists from India and Nepal. They stayed on site for more than a year to carry out all the decoration, frescoes and sculptures. In order to preserve the exterior woodwork, statues and decoration, the choice was made to gild rather than paint them. Gold leaf gilding is a traditional technique used as a sign of respect for sacred objects, but it's also, paradoxically, the least expensive over the long term. Many volunteers came from all over Europe to participate in this great adventure. They worked on the painting and sculpture, guided by the Tibetan artists. The project was financed entirely by donations from Rigpa friends and students. Thousands of people from all over the world thus contributed, directly or indirectly, to the temple's construction. The heart of Lerab Ling's temple is its magnificent statue of Buddha, 7 meters high, that the Dalai Lama came to consecrate during his second visit to Lerab Ling in the August of 2008. To the right of the main statue is a statue of Padmasambhava, the great Indian saint who brought Buddhism to Tibet in the 9th century AD, and on the left, one of Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion. These two statues were first made in clay and then gilded. The altars on either side contain 1,000 statues of Buddha. In the center of the one on the left is the Buddha of the past, and on the right, the Buddha of the future. All of the paintings, the statues, and the decorative elements on the walls and roofs have a symbolic significance and have been blessed and consecrated according to tradition. For example, these roof ornaments are called victory banners and symbolize the victory of the Buddha's teachings over negative emotions. The overall result is undoubtedly one of the most authentic examples of Buddhist art and architecture to be found in the West. The temple can accommodate 1,000 people on the ground floor. On the first floor are 2 temples that can each seat 200 to 300 people, as well as a library. On the second floor are accommodations for visiting teachers, and in the center 3 more smaller temples destined to house numerous relics and sacred objects. Lerab Ling, which means a sanctuary of enlightened action, is a center for retreat and meditation. Each day the monastic community and those who've come on retreat meditate and pray for the world. Retreats are organized to allow each one to discover meditation or to simply mark a pause in one's life. It's also a place for the study and dissemination of the Buddha's teachings. Many masters come to teach here, and their teachings are recorded, then translated into several languages and used by Rigpa's worldwide centers. Lerab Ling also houses a study college, where traditional Tibetan texts are translated and studied. Lerab Ling also organizes forums for the medical professions, interfaith encounters, and other events open to a wide audience. You may now enjoy the temple and its environment at your leisure. Prayers are inscribed on the flags along the road, and when the wind moves them, they send blessings to the surrounding area. In front of the temple, in the middle of the lake, you'll see a statue of Padmasambhava, the master who established Buddhism in Tibet. You'll also see a stupa, a symbolic representation of the enlightened mind of the Buddha, which contains many relics. The statues in the gardens represent offering goddesses. Please don't touch either these sacred objects or the paintings and decorations in the temple. All of the Lerab Ling community is happy to share this beautiful place with you, and we wish you an enjoyable and inspiring visit.